there are only 5 days left until this book releases. While we wait impatiently, we are telling a little bit about the backstory, things that led eventually to us writing this book and sharing our stories. So today I want to share a little bit about Nadeem, whose story is told in here. He's a contributor to the story. When Nadeem was only 19 years old when the earthquake struck. He was still a high school student, and in an instant he suddenly went from worrying about exams to worrying about how he was going to find shelter and protect and provide for his family in this chaotic world that resulted in an instant. 3 months after the earthquake, when I arrived with my team, he had already been working for a few months with our NGO, and that's how we met. He was hired as the camp cook, but quickly demonstrated that he had a variety of skills to offer, and he supported our team in a number of ways. Before we left, Nadeem and I exchanged email addresses. We just stayed in touch. We did occasionally exchange emails for a few years. Then one day he popped up on LinkedIn, and we messaged occasionally through LinkedIn, but we didn't really start communicating much until the pandemic. In 2020, Nadeem shared that he had been working with the US Embassy in Islamabad, but as soon as the pandemic struck, they really scaled everything back, and he was laid off. And he, although the family had bought a plot of land and they had a home that they were building a house, they were still living in a rented apartment in Islamabad, and he couldn't pay the rent. And so we were talking about ways, with everything being shut down, how could he find some money? So together we set up a GoFundMe account, and through the generosity of strangers, Nadeem and his family had enough donations to keep them in their home during the pandemic. As soon as the pandemic was done, Nadeem immediately got hired back at his job, paid off his debts that he had built up through the pandemic, and they resumed building their home. And they quickly got back on track. And so today they live in their own home on their own land. And Nadeem shared recently with a big smile that life is easier now. It's easy. He started his own business. He's feeling very hopeful and optimistic. Yesterday we were chatting. He and the family had gone back to Kashmir to celebrate Eid al-Fitr. And he shared with me some photos that he'd taken of the region. He and a friend had taken some photos, and he sent me a batch, and I'll share them here. And I was amazed, it looked so green and inviting, and the buildings looked amazing. And it was just such a sharp difference to what it had looked like when I left in January 2006. And I commented on that, and he said, well, remember that it's been 15 years. This hasn't happened overnight. And so for me, it looked like it was this amazing recovery, and for him, he reminded me, that recovery is possible, but it's not fast, and it's never complete. You can rebuild the buildings, but there's always going to be something that's forever changed after a disaster like this. So that's where I'm going to leave that story today, and tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more about the details that actually led to this book getting started, and Nadeem and I collaborating on the book. So come back tomorrow.